Happy Monday morning, everybody. As y'all coming in, put your locations in the comments. 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 And then we will get started. As usual, the topic here today, we're going to talk about this fraud situation, this scandal that has escalated up in Minnesota. Shout out to the people in Minnesota. Shout out to the people where locations in the comments, everybody. Topic here today, we're going to talk about this Minnesota fraud situation that has a bunch of Somalis who live in Minnesota involved. Locations in the comments, everybody. Put your locations in the comments. Where are you checking in from? Where are you checking in from? Put your locations in the comments. We are live on Rumble. Good morning, Rumble. Live on YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. It says we are live on X. Let me see if I can see it this way. And over on X, it looks like we're live. Let me see. Yes, we are live on X. Good morning, X. We are live on LinkedIn. Good morning, LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn and X and Rumble and YouTube is at Dre All Day. LinkedIn, X, Rumble, YouTube is at Dre All Day. We are live on Facebook, Facebook/Work on Your Game University if you're a Facebook user. Live on Instagram at Dre Baldwin and live on TikTok at Work on Your Game. Let me shout out people who put their locations in the comments. KingWorks21 said the personal development legend, Mr. Dre Baldwin. Appreciate you, KingWorks21. Checking in from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Shout out to Alabama. Alabama made the playoffs, right? Yeah, I know they lost the championship game to Georgia, but they did make the playoffs. So shout out to Alabama making the playoff. Marcus D. Roberson checking in from Houston. Shout out to Houston. Beautiful place. Let me see. Locations in the comments. Oh, shit. Somebody just got in a car accident. Hold on. I can't see it, but I just heard that crash. Somebody just crashed their car. I can't see it, but somebody just crashed. Linda Gale, 1935. Hopefully whoever crashed their car isn't good. It wasn't that loud of a crash. It was a little fender bender, but it was a crash. Linda Gale checking in from St. Louis. Carla, Indiana. Good morning. Dwayne Mitchell, Detroit is in the house. For Baptiste from Haiti. Free 12F from Texas. Shout out to Texas. Christy Ebster from Nevada. 140.6 Walnut Creek, California. Marky Man, good morning. From Sacramento. Frank from Clearwater. Shout out to Tampa Bay. I used to go to the LA Fitness right there next to the baseball stadium. Shout out to the Clearwater Phillies. My hometown is Philadelphia, PA. I'm based in South Florida. But shout out to the Clearwater Phillies. That LA Fitness I used to go to, and that baseball stadium. I went to a game or two over there. Carol Ann Collins from Newburgh, New York. Good morning. Carla, Indiana said, "Go Big Red, #1, baby." Who's Big Red? Is that Alabama or somebody else? Or are you talking about Indiana? I think you're talking about Indiana. Because they beat Ohio State to get the #1 seed in the playoffs. So they didn't basically turn this into the NFL. Now they got playoffs. Now you got to play, 3 more games to win the championship? I understand why they're doing it. And there's more money involved, more TV and all that. But it kind of undoes the way it used to be. Maybe that was the point. But okay. Katie, love and hugs from Iowa today. Good morning. Yeah, Indiana. I figured it. After I thought about it, I figured it had to be Indiana. All right, so the topic here today, this Somali fraud situation in Minnesota. Several of you were asking me about this last week when we were focused on a bigger topic, or at least to me, the Candace Owens scandal. Not even a scandal, the Candace Owens saga. Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, TP USA saga, which is still an ongoing thing. And as more things happen in that, I will probably talk about it again. There were some things that happened over the weekend, but not enough to go do a whole thing about it. But let's talk about what happened here. So I went and looked into seeing what exactly is happening here because I was not paying any attention to this. I told you all this last week. But what happened is this scandal has escalated into a $1 billion, that's a billion with a B, $1 billion welfare catastrophe. And it mixes in organized criminal networks, allegedly, political avoidance, allegedly. We're going to get to it. The Real Ice said Masterful Job on Whitlock show last week. Yeah, I was on Whitlock show last week. It was either Thursday or Friday talking about the Candace Owens things. Thank you. So political avoidance, racial sensitivity paralysis, inside state agencies, and federal intervention now being weaponized in a national election environment. That's what's happening in Minnesota. Now, prosecutors repeatedly emphasize that the guilty represent a tiny fraction of Minnesota's Somali community. So there's some people who have already been, by the prosecutors, again, this doesn't mean they've been adjudicated, but the prosecutors have already charged some people. A significant number of people who are charged are of Somalian descent. That's why this is a Somali story. That's why they're calling it that. But these people live here in America. Now, the people who are charged are a tiny fraction of the entire Somali community in Minnesota. I didn't know about this, but I've come to learn over the last year or so. There's a ton of Somalis living in Minnesota. How they ended up in Minnesota, I don't know. I mean, they're like snow. Does it snow in Somalia? I don't know. I know it snows in Minnesota. Why did they move to Minnesota? Any of you have answer to that question? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. But anyway, tiny fraction of the Somali community has been charged in this case. But the scale, the coordination, and the political handling of this situation have pushed this story into national security territory. This is the reason why this is a big story for several other reasons, in addition to what I'm going to share here. Barbie 0007, good morning. We're going to talk about all of that here today. National security territory, with state leadership accused of ignoring warnings to protect a key voting bloc. It's a big part of this. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And the federal government now threatening massive financial penalties. So this is a national story now for several reasons, because of not just the scandal and the money. That kind of stuff happens on every level in every state, but because this might even become a national security thing, and because Minnesota is a heavily Democratic state. The governor is Democratic. We remember him, Mr. Governor Walz. He was the running mate of Mrs. Kamala Harris in 2024. Remember Tim Walz? And Minnesota is just a heavily Democratic place. I mean, this is what it is. So let me introduce myself for those who don't know me. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of a few books, done a few TED Talks. I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. Our job over here is helping you take the tools to help athletes reach the top of their game and applying it to your everyday life and to your professional career. Our focus right now is on the Power Presence protocol. You can see that manual right there above me. I got one sitting right here on my desk. This right here is about mastering communication. It says Power Presence. Presence is about more than communication, but most of you understand the concept of communication. Most of you think communication is what I'm doing right now, sitting and talking or sitting down and writing. That is only part of communication. Most of communication is not speaking. Most of communication is unspoken. And about half of communication is what you absorb, take in, and observe from other people. When you master all of that together, it comes into one signal that is called presence. And when you master presence, that's when you start getting everything you want in your personal life, everything you want in your career, everything you want in your business. If you would like to be coached on that directly by me, go to the link in my profile. You learn more about our mastermind, where I am your direct coach and we help you master this stuff in about 90 days. Now, getting into the topic here today, which is, again, the Somali fraud situation happening in Minnesota. Hot 2 Jam said, I'm hearing $8 billion. I've heard $8 billion as well, but conservatively, people are saying at least $1 billion. $1 billion is a lot of money. So if it's $8 billion, that's a lot of money. Now, there's an organization called Feeding Our Future. Now, what happened is defendants inflated child meal counts into the millions. So this organization called Feeding Our Future. Let me see if I can find out about a little bit more about this organization. And I'm looking at Grok for this. Grok is pretty good with, what do we call it? Current event stuff. Tell me more about the Feeding Our Future organization in Minnesota and what they had to do with this scandal. Might have been too in-depth of a question, but Grok is usually pretty fast at pulling stuff up. So Feeding Our Future was a Minneapolis-based nonprofit organization founded in 2016. Their stated mission of supporting immigrant and underserved communities, particularly Somali Americans, by facilitating access to federal child nutrition programs. That sounds fair enough. So they started an organization in Minnesota, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, all based on serving immigrants and underserved communities, specifically focused on Somali Americans. All right, that sounds fair enough. Anybody got a problem with that so far? I don't have a problem with that. That sounds good enough. All right, you want to help underserved people, particularly Somalians. Fair. Now, what happened is it was a sponsor for community partners such as food sites, nonprofits, small businesses to participate in the USDA's Federal Child Nutrition Program. In other words, they will get money from the federal government to feed these people. Under normal circumstances, they were responsible for oversight, ensuring that they met requirements like site visits, meal counts, financial reporting. So they were a nonprofit. They got a bunch of money from the government. Somebody is supposed to govern all that, what they're doing, and make sure that the money and the food is going to the right places. Again, this is normal procedure. Now, the organization grew modestly. It dispersed about $3.4 million in federal funds in 2019. That's modest, by the way, for those of you who don't know anything about government contracting. $3.4 million in disbursement is modest. Now, it became the epicenter of a fraud scheme that there were waivers that relaxed federal oversight that came out during the virus in 2020 that enabled rapid meal distribution. So in other words, when the virus happened in 2020, the federal government said, okay, well, a lot of people still need food and we have this crisis on our hands, so we're going to do waivers. And these waivers it basically relaxed the oversight. And that allowed the meals to get distributed a lot faster without going through all the bureaucratic red tape. Long story short, everybody, this happened during the virus. Most of you are older than 5 years old. You remember the virus. During the virus, a bunch of things got paused that they were deemed non-essential. But things that are essential, like people eating food, especially if they're underserved, that still needed to happen. So what happened during the virus time, I'm just translating what I just read to you, is that the federal government said, we are going to relax the oversight. We're still going to give you the money and the food, but we're not going to do oversight. In other words, we're not going to check on you that you're doing things the right way. We're just going to give it to you and go by the honor system of you doing it the right way. And long story short, they didn't do it the right way. That is the allegation that's happening right now against this organization called FOF, which again stands for Feeding Our Future. So what happened here is their role was central. They sponsored, here's what Feeding Our Future did. Check this out, yo. They sponsored 250 sham food sites, quote unquote, across Minnesota. So basically, they made up 250 places that were allegedly giving out food, but it wasn't giving out any food. This is basically PPP loans on steroids, all in one location. That's what happened in Minnesota. Jay Rocker, good morning. So this all happened in Minnesota. 250 sham food sites falsely claiming, they claimed through all these 250 sites together, they claimed that they had served tens of millions of meals to children, while at the same time, what they were actually doing were taking $250 million of taxpayer funds and giving it to people who were involved, who were providing little to no actual food. In other words, again, PPP loans on steroids. And this one was worse because PPP loans, we knew we were giving you money to pay your people, but at least we kind of knew half of what you were doing, not the other half with people who did that the wrong way. This one was just a complete no-show job, and they were getting the money straight from the government. Now, this fraud began showing signs before the scamdemic, but exploded during the scamdemic. It has been described by former Attorney General Merrick Garland as, quote, the country's largest virus, I'm not going to use his word, the P word, relief fraud scheme, the country's largest scheme. It contributed to broader Minnesota Somali-linked fraud scandals where over $1 billion in total funds were allegedly stolen from various programs. So let's go over exactly how this fraud was executed. So it said it was a network of shell companies, fake documentations, kickbacks, took advantage of USDA's temporary flexibilities during the virus. In other words, during the virus, what happened is the USDA, they redirected their resources. All of you remember the virus. So during the virus, they didn't do site visits. So in other words, you could say something's happening. Nobody was going to check up on you to make sure it was happening. There was no pre-approval for site visits. You could claim you had a site and you didn't have anybody to check on you. You had to self-report your meal count. So in other words, if you were giving out 100 meals and the government said, oh, I'll give you $1,000 for your 100 meals, you could say, well, actually, we're giving out 10,000 meals and the government's going to give you more money, even though the meals are not going out and you're self-reporting. You basically self-report and say, hey, government, yes, I'm telling the truth. And they just give you the money. So I can see how this opens the door for unscrupulous people to just start doing scams. So it's exactly what happened. And expanded eligibility for non-traditional distributors because, again, the government's resources were stretched thin during the time of that virus. They were not checking on this stuff, and they started waiving all the checks. The system of checks and balances got relaxed. The red tape and bureaucracy got relaxed. Red tape and bureaucracy can be a good thing when it's keeping people from doing scams. The red tape and bureaucracy got relaxed. The government stopped checking on this stuff, and some unscrupulous people just started taking advantage of it because they saw the opportunity. They didn't accept they were going to get caught. They got caught. So starting in 2019, this happened before the virus, the executive director, her name was Amy Bach. She does not sound Somalian to me. It sounds like a white woman to me. Amy Bach and associates enrolled dozens of fake or unqualified food sites, basically fake places, under the sponsorship, and they claimed to serve meals at inflated scales. So not only did they create fake locations, they also lied about the number of meals that were being delivered. And they even went above and beyond the normal number of meals delivered. So let's say a normal place might deliver 1,000 meals. they would say that we're delivering 40,000 meals a week. Who the hell is eating 40,000 meals a week at one location? The state of Minnesota is a big state, but ain't that many people. 40,000 meals a week to underserved Somalians. Is it how many Somalians live in Minnesota? 40,000 a week. So let's say if I eat, let's do the math on this, folks. If I eat 3 meals a day, let's say people are eating 3 meals a day. Kids eat 3 meals a day, right? If I eat 3 meals a day and it's 7 days in a week, that means each person is eating 21 meals a week. So if I'm going to distribute 40,000 meals in a week, divided by 21 meals per person, that's 1,900 people at one location. That's a lot of people coming to one location to get food. That's a long line at the food stand spot. That's a lot of. What do y'all think about that? That sounds crazy to me. That number sounds very big, but they got away with this. That's the part that's crazy, is that they were getting away with this for several years. 2025 is then 2026, and they're just now getting caught on this. Echoes 9711. Good morning. So let's see where we were. 40,000 meals a week, fake documentation. So they would submit fraudulent invoices, fraudulent attendance rosters. This immediately becomes mail fraud, by the way. You do anything fraudulent and you send it through any type of mail service, FedEx, UPS, DHL, USPS, this is mail fraud. If you do it through the internet, or you use any type of cable or wire service like the internet, that becomes wire fraud. So this is mail fraud and wire fraud off the top, without even knowing any more details. Her team, and they fabricated the names of the kids and the ages of the kids. So they were using AI before AI. So they just made up names of kids. Now AI can give you a list of 200 kids' names and ages in like 10 seconds. They were doing it before AI came out. So ChatGPT should actually hire these people to make up fake names. So her team rubber stamped these and forwarded them to the Minnesota Department of Education. So any of you got kids in Minnesota going to school, this white woman helped defraud y'all. We're going to get to the Somalis in a minute, but Amy Bach does not sound like a Somalian to me. Now, no meals were served at most of these sites. Inspections later revealed empty facilities and no operations. In other words, they were just making it up and getting away with it. Now, disbursement. FOF, Feeding Our Future. They dispersed $240 million in money between 2020 and 2022. They kept $18 million in unauthorized administrative fees. Anytime you see an organization getting bigger and bigger and they got more people working in the main office, those are your administrative fees. And those people have jobs and those people got to get paid. Those are your administrative fees. Those funds were laundered via personal accounts. So people send them to their personal bank account. Stupid, because now it's wire fraud that is directly traceable to you. Idiots. Luxury purchases. They were buying Rolex watches, Lamborghinis, Burberry clothes, real estate in Minnesota and abroad. People were buying houses in Kenya and Turkey. Again, this is all easy paper trail, easy way to get found. These people just thought they would never get caught. International wire transfers. There's your wire fraud right there. Even Hawala networks. Some defendants paid kickbacks to employees for approvals. In other words, everybody who was involved in this. This already sounds like a big scheme. This sounds like, I don't even know what this sounds like. It's a very big scheme that involved the USDA, the Department Drug Administration. It's the Minnesota Department of Education. And all of these people who are involved in this big organization, they're taking in a lot of money. They took in $240 million. That's just between 2020 and 2022. We're not done. Now, claims balloon from realistic numbers. Before 2020, they were putting out realistic numbers of what they were actually doing. Then the numbers got absurd. 91 meals total across sites, equating to reimbursements of $11.50 per meal. 91 million meals. How many people do you have to be feeding to disperse 91 million meals? Let's do some math again, folks. 91 million. We say a person eats 21 meals a week. That's 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. Let's get 91 million. So 91 million divided by, let's just say 21 meals a week. That means they were distributing 4,333,333 and a third meals every week. No, wait. People. That's 4,333,000. How many people live in the state of Minnesota? Anybody know the number? So I don't have to look it up. How many people live in Minnesota? The entire state. Does anybody know the total number of people who live in Minnesota? I may have to ask one of my apps for this. Let's see. Because we're going to do the math on this one. Minnesota state population. State of Minnesota has 5.7 million people. So these people just had delusions of grandeur. They didn't think they were going to get caught. There are 5.7 million people in Minnesota. They distributed, according to the numbers they were giving out, 91 million meals. Again, if a person eats 3 meals a day every week, that means they had to be feeding, 4 million people. There's only 5.7 million people in the entire state of Minnesota, but this organization was only for children, number one. That's the first filter. It got to be kids. Secondly, the filter has to be their underserved children, underprivileged children. And third, they're mostly Somalians. How many Somalians live in Minnesota? Let's find out. This is crazy. How many Somalians live in the state of Minnesota? So approximately 108,000 Somalis live in Minnesota. 108,000. So according to what they were doing, they were feeding 4.3 million people, but there's only 108,000 Somalis in the state of Minnesota. This is crazy. I'm being very broad with the math here, but this is still crazy. Now, 91 million meals total across sites, equating to reimbursement. Now let's break that down by year. So let's just say 1 million meals a year. Even then, this is crazy. Or 1 million people a year, excuse me. One vendor, this guy's named Haji Osman Sarad. Now that sounds like a Somali. He claimed, here's what this guy claimed, Haji claimed that he served 15 million meals. He got $11.5 million. So it's basically $10 a meal. Another person named Shamarke Isa claimed 2.3 million meals. This is delusions of grandeur. See, if you're going to do a scam, you got to make the scam sound realistic. Just in case somebody ever looks into the scam, it got to sound like it's something that you actually did. They just said, "Oh, let's just go as far as we can go. All right, let's just take this. Let's just go absurd." All right, that's what they said. Let's just go to the absurd level with this. $18 million in administration fees, $3.4 million in 2019, $200 million in 2021. They went from $3.4 million of actual disbursement to $200 million of disbursement within 2 years. 3.4 million to 200 million. And then these idiots went and bought luxury goods. Y'all know all this stuff is traceable. If you're doing something financially, let me give y'all some criminal advice. I'm not a criminal. But if you're going to do some criminal stuff with money, the first thing that you don't do is go buy luxury things, because luxury things draws attention. When you buy luxury stuff, you draw attention to yourself. Don't go buy a Rolex. Don't buy a house. Don't buy a luxury car. If you're going to buy a car, go get yourself a Toyota. Don't go buy a Lamborghini, idiot. Now everybody's looking at you because you bought a Lamborghini. Now everybody wants to know how you got the Lamborghini. Or this person works for the government and he gives out meals. He works at this guy, look, he got a Lamborghini. That's a nice Lamborghini he has. What does he do for a living? Because people want to know. They see you with nice stuff. They want to know what you do, right? All right, he got a Lamborghini. What does he do for a living? Oh, he works for a nonprofit organization that feeds underprivileged Somali children. Now he's driving a Lamborghini. You dumbass. Now everybody's going to know, how the hell does that make sense? Now you got people sniffing around. So this is stupid, whoever bought the Lamborghini. Second is that people bought houses. Don't buy a house. Again, it's going to get the same question. When you buy a house, you got to fill out a ton of paperwork. So don't do that. Don't buy a Rolex. And because, again, people talk. They see the Rolex on your wrist. All right, they see the Rolex on your wrist. That's a nice watch. Where do you get that watch from? All right, wait. How much that watch costs? What kind of rocks is that? All right, let me see how much that watch costs. They Google it. Okay, this watch costs $25,000. You work for a nonprofit organization. How are you buying $25,000 watches? All this does is just draw attention. You only need one person to say the wrong thing to the wrong person. Now you got a whole investigation. All right, this is just dumb. So this fraud persisted due to lax state oversight. There was no oversight from the state. The Department of Education were processing claims without any verification. And the reason why, this is what some are saying. What some are saying is that this happened because the state of Minnesota did not want to get targeted with, where was it? They didn't want anyone claiming that they were discriminating against FOF, because FOF, Feeding Our Future, is all about serving underserved kids, particularly Somalians. So the people who run the state of Minnesota, mostly white liberals, because Minnesota is a Democrat-run state, the white liberals in Minnesota, they were afraid of having the Somalians say, hey, y'all are discriminating against us by looking into our numbers. So They said, okay, let's not say anything about what these guys are doing. Just give them whatever they're asking for. This is after the George Floyd. You know, George Floyd is not a Somalian. But this is how you see people take advantage of the shit. And this is, again, these are theories. Minnesota didn't want to say anything to them because they didn't want to look like they were discriminating against some brown people. And they took advantage of it until they couldn't take advantage of it anymore. So what happened here is, and this has been going for a while, by the way, folks. This is not brand new. So Amy Bach founded this whole thing. It was a legitimate organization in 2016. In 2019, there were early red flags. So the Minnesota Department of Education noted that the meal claims were not realistic, and they said Bach's behavior was concerning, including pressure on staff to improve reimbursements without question. So Amy Bach got tainted. Let's just say that. She started with good cause, and then she got tainted because she saw the dollar signs. Now in 2020, when they had the scamdemic waivers, FOF actually sued. Now, here's what happened in 2020. This is the part I didn't give y'all. In 2020, Feeding Our Future sued the Minnesota Department of Education for discrimination. So this is the reason why this went further. They sued Minnesota for discrimination in 2020 because a bunch of their approvals got delayed, and they didn't. And because of that lawsuit, I don't think the lawsuit went through. The lawsuit might have got dropped. But after that lawsuit, the state of Minnesota said, okay, let's chill on the oversight of these folks because they'll sue us again. We don't want this to become national news, and we don't want us to look bad like we're going against the brown people and against the immigrants. So let's just chill and not say anything. So they turned a blind eye. The people at FOS said, look, we scared these mofos off. We can do whatever we want, and they're not going to oversight us on anything. Let's just go wild. And they went wild after 2020. So in 2021, here's what happened. The FBI got involved. The FBI got involved because the Minnesota Department of Education flagged the fraud to the USDA. So pay attention to this timeline here. 2020 FOF, this is the people doing the scam. They sued the Department of Education in Minnesota for discrimination. And Minnesota chilled on doing the oversight. So they thought, okay, we just scared them off. We do whatever we want. 1 year later, that same organization that they sued and said, we're going to chill on oversighting y'all, they went and told the FBI, hey, this doesn't look right. So in other words, they said, we can't do it because they're going to make us look bad, but we'll just go to the FBI, let them do it. And quietly, this all started happening. So behind the scenes, the Federal Bureau started investigating these people, and they didn't know they were being investigated. That's how you get caught. Then any of you knows anything about organized crime? That's what this is. This is organized criminal activity. It's not like the cops chasing you down after you steal something. You steal a candy bar from the grocery store. That's not that. That's petty theft. Organized crime is that when the authorities recognize or they think you're doing organized crime, they don't go and arrest you that day. They don't get a tip about you on Monday and then arrest you on Tuesday. That's not what they do. They let you keep doing it. They see what you're doing, and once they confirm that you're actually doing a crime, what they do is they let you keep doing it for a while so they can build up a case. They want to make the case airtight. So they want to catch you. Once they start tracking you, all they do is just watch you doing the criminal stuff. They just get you doing the criminal stuff over and over and over and over and over again for as long as possible to get as many people in your web of deception as possible so they can bring everybody down all at the same time. You see, if they just get a tip about Mike, they'll just go arrest Mike. But then if Mike gets arrested, then everybody else might say, oh, damn, Mike got arrested. Let's chill on the criminal activity. Now they can't arrest anybody else. But if they know Mike is doing something, they say, well, Mike's probably not doing this alone. Who else is helping him? Then when they see Mike, oh, Mike's doing it with Lisa. Then Ginger's involved. Then James is involved. And John is involved. And all these other thousands of people are involved. Now we're going to get all these mofos at the same time. This becomes a career case for an investigator. Getting a bunch of people all at once in a big crime with a lot of money involved is a bigger case than just arresting one guy for doing something bad. So they let them keep doing it. So FBI starts investigating. Then in 2022, a year later, so in February 21, FBI started the investigation. They didn't arrest anybody until 2022. So they let them do this for a whole year. And in 2022, FOF got shut down. They seized all the assets and all the money. In September of 22, 47 people got charged. And then within the next 2 years, another 23 people got charged. So 70 people charged. Now, 2025, you're getting convictions. So people are getting convicted right now. So Bach and Saeed, they got found guilty in March. So this has been going on. I didn't know anything about this. 78th defendant, his name is Abdi Rashid Bixi Dul. He got charged about 2 weeks ago. He got charged for 1.1 million in theft. He's going to jail. 77th person, Osman Kamara. He got $500,000 in theft. He got charged on November 20th. 75th person, Muna Waiz Feedhin, $1 million. That was in September. 56th guilty plea. And then ongoing 61 convictions, 78 charges. 61 convictions. People are falling like dominoes. Ain't nobody beating this case. So Amy Bach, I don't know what she got. I'm trying to find out what she got sentenced to. 2.2 million. He ran a fake safari restaurant. How you have a fake restaurant? These people just thought they were gonna do whatever they wanted to do. All right. He had a fake restaurant. I never heard of a fake restaurant. Anyway, Muna Waiz, 1.1 million. He had a cafe as well. He bribed an employee for $27,000. He used it for his mortgage and his car. Dummy. Bixi Dul, he laundered for travel and real estate. This was stupid. Shouldn't have did that. What he should have did is just buy some stocks and just hold on to the money. Put it in your bank account and do nothing. That's what he should have did. They still would have got caught, but still. So this guy, Abdul Noor Jisal, he laundered $4.3 million. He got a cut of 5%. 5% of $4.3 million is a lot of money. For SNS Catering Group. Another guy, Najmo Ahmed, he pleaded guilty in February. He laundered $1.4 million from a place called For Evergreen Grocery. He bought luxury goods. He's the most dumb. Buying luxury goods is the dumbest thing you can do if you want people to not know that you're doing something illegal to make your money. Osman Kamara, $500,000 via K's Grocery. He wired $100K abroad. So he's wire fraud, international wire fraud. He's going to jail for a long time. 78 people charged, many tied to the Somali community and organizations. Okay, so let's see what we got. I'm trying to find what people got. So 61 guilty pleas and convictions. Most of them got 5 to 20 year sentences and restitution orders. They had to get the money back. Bach and Saeed are facing up to 20 years. Yeah, they get wire fraud, mail fraud. That's a 20-year conviction. They face up to 20. They'll probably get half. $50 million have been seized, folks. Now, you say this was an $8 billion crime. 50 million got seized. Do y'all understand what that means? That over $7 billion has not been recovered yet. Let's see. MDE has added verification rules after 2022, the audit that criticized the chilling effect from the lawsuit. Minnesota legislative auditor report, oversight failures enabled fraud. Yeah, so Minnesota just not doing right oversight. That's how the fraud happened. The probe is ongoing. FBI expects more charges. So any of you in Minnesota who were a part of this scam, they still coming for your ass. You can't get away. You better leave the country. I say just leave the country. Go somewhere that's non-extradition like Russell Simmons so they can't get you. Go to Bali and just stay there until further notice. Now, U.S. Attorney Joseph Thompson says Minnesota is a national poster child for public corruption. So that's what they're saying about this. That's just the details that I was getting into. That's not even everything I was going to say here today, but I think I gave y'all pretty much the context. But let me see what else there is. The DOJ says that they stole nearly $300 million just during the virus. I don't know what time period will give the virus. Let's just say between 2020 and 2021. They stole $300 million. That's a lot of money. They say that this can get up to $8 billion. Now, Minnesota's DOE, Department of Education, I already told y'all, they backed off because of the lawsuits and the racism accusations. So here, any of you want an argument against DEI? Y'all want an argument against DEI? This is it right here. That when the state of Minnesota started looking at these folks, because they were a mostly Somali targeting and Somali run organization, when the state of Minnesota started looking at them and saying, hey, y'all got to do your paperwork properly, just follow the damn rules, they started claiming discrimination and racism, and the state of Minnesota got scared and stopped making them follow the rules. Any of you want an argument against DEI? There it is right there. There it is right there. That when a group starts to feel as if they have privileges that are not awarded to others, such as you don't have to follow the rules because we could just call racism against you and you're going to get scared, then this is what they do. They take advantage. They steal, let's say, several hundred million, maybe up to billions of dollars from the state and from the federal government and from the USDA that is supposed to be earmarked to actually help people, and the money gets scammed out so these people can buy houses, cars, luxury watches. And these are people who are the recipients of these privileges because they are allegedly underserved, or what's the word they always use? Traditionally marginalized organizations, traditionally marginalized communities. So any of you who need some content, there it is right there. There's some content for you to argue against DEI and the ramifications of DEI. And these are Somalis. They're not even from America. They're not even Americans doing this. So even if you're a black or brown natural born American, you should have a problem with this, because that money is government money that's supposed to be going to, even if you're not looking for government assistance, the government, they fill potholes, right? They fix roads, state government, federal government. They do feed people who actually need it, people who actually need the food and actually get a real meal from government money. These people stole hundreds of millions of dollars of money that's supposed to go to feeding people, and they used it for other things because nobody was getting fed. The people didn't even exist. Again, 4 million people a year. There's only 5 million people in Minnesota. Less than 6 million, 5.7 million people in the state of Minnesota. They are allegedly feeding 4 million people a year, and the government kept giving them the money. That's the part that's crazy. Who in the government just said, all right, I'm going to just rubber stamp this, when the numbers clearly don't make any sense? Again, the organization was not to feed everybody. Everybody in Minnesota does not need government assistance. It's kids, underserved kids, and mostly Somalian kids. It's only 100,000 Somalis in the entire state. All of them ain't kids, and all of them are not needy of government assistance. And the state of Minnesota's government allowed this to happen. Well, what do we say when the federal government is messing up? We blame the president, right? Is that how it works? I'm just checking. When the federal government is not doing the right thing, most people look to the president and say the president is messing up. Let's blame this on the president. Is that true? Okay. So when the state government is messing up, who do we blame? Federal government is messing up, we blame the president. When the state government is messing up, who do we blame? I ask you this question. Who do we blame? Yeah, Carl, that's why it's crazy. Who do you blame when the state is messing up? We blame the president when the country is messing up. Who do you blame when the state is messing up? Okay, all of you know the answer to the question. Who's the governor of Minnesota? Does anybody know who the governor of Minnesota is? Because that individual is under the scope. Who is the governor of Minnesota? The government of Minnesota is Mr. Timothy Walz. He was the running mate. Those who don't know who he is, he was the running mate to Kamala Harris in 2024 in that failed presidential campaign. This is the guy who claimed he was in Tiananmen Square. Remember that one? Tiananmen Square, back when it happened. He wasn't there. He wasn't even in the country. That guy, the guy who misspoke, Mr. Misspeaking, Tim Walz. He's the governor of Minnesota. He was the one in charge when all this was happening. That's your governor, folks. Now, let's go into a little bit more detail. There was an autism therapy billing. Okay, so FOF, check this out. I got more details here, folks. More details. FOF had an autism therapy billing department. They were helping people with autism. The billing went from $3 million a year, which sounds reasonable. $3 million is reasonable when you're dealing with government money. It went up to $400 million in 5 years. So he went from serving $3 million worth of people to $400 million worth of people. So all of a sudden, all these people needed autism therapy. Fake diagnoses, forged treatment logs, and parental kickbacks to turn this into a cash pipeline for fraud networks. And federal authorities say that this spike cannot be explained by demographic changes. Oh, thank you, federal authorities. Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. We couldn't figure that one out. Yes, this was not enough. There was not enough in the demographic change for us to go from $3 million to $400 million in autism treatments in 5 years. Now, housing stabilization services left vulnerable clients homeless, while companies billed Medicaid as if they were safely placed, demonstrating exploitation of disabled and rehab transition populations for profit. So let me translate what I just said to you all. The fraud that they did was that we are collecting money from the government, the organizations. We're collecting money from the government because we're taking people who are disabled and people who are in rehab, we're putting them in housing, secure, safe housing. And the government gave them money because they said they were doing it. The thing is, they took the money and never actually put these people in houses. So people who are allegedly noted by the government as being housed by these nonprofit organizations, the government thought they were housed and they distributed the money because of that. But the people never got housed, and the people who collected the money just kept the money and they went and bought themselves a Rolex and a car. That's what happened in this scam, this fraud scam. This is crazy. And I'm not even giving you all the details here. Now, the cost jumped from, check this out. It was 2.6 million at one point. And by 2024, just last year, it went from 2.6 million to 104 million. So a 50x increase in putting vulnerable people in housing. And they weren't even doing it. But again, the part that I think is crazy, the government kept giving them the money. The state of Minnesota kept giving them the money. How you go from 2.6 million to 104 million of the exact same thing in 5 years, and the government, nobody in the government says anything. So any of you was wondering why Elon Musk was doing Department of Government Efficiency, is because of shit like this. This is just in the state of Minnesota. This kind of stuff happens all the time, and most of it doesn't become news. Now, prosecutors confirm, that a lot of these defendants who are Somali linked, they had tight clusters of cooperating shell operations, laundering money through hawala systems, where 10 to 20% taxes may reach an organization called Al-Shabaab. And this is a organization that the government has flagged as a possibly terrorist organization. So the Treasury opened a probe on this just this month. And this month is only 8 days old. So they're looking into this to where this could become an even bigger scandal. Now, Governor Tim Walz, here's what Governor Tim Walz has to say. He says that the state erred on generosity. That is Tim Walz's language on this. The state erred on generosity, close quote. That's a quote from Tim Walz. This is Tim Walz again. He misspoke that he was in Tiananmen Square when it happened. He wasn't even in the country when it happened. That's what he said. We erred on generosity. This guy was about to be the vice president of the country, by the way. If y'all just don't understand the gravity of this guy was about to be the vice president of the country. And critics say the administration ignored explicit fraud warnings for years so they could avoid friction with a politically powerful Somali American voting bloc. This is government. I've talked about this over and over and over again, folks. This is how the government works. When you're in the government, you got to lie. You got to turn a blind eye to things that you got to lie about things you actually wouldn't lie about normally. You got to turn a blind eye to things you otherwise would address in order to keep your job. It's the number one job of people in politics is to keep their jobs. Tim Walz's number one job is keeping his job. He was almost the vice president of the country. His number one job is keeping the job that he still has, which is governor, and keeping his political credit, let's just say. Whatever political resources he still has, he wants to keep it. And he knows that as a Democrat, if he was to go against the Somalis in Minnesota, where he's at, his home state, he's done in the state of Minnesota. And where's he going to go federally? Probably nowhere, because he can't even win his backyard. So he turned a blind eye to this because he didn't want to get backlash from the Somali community, because the Somali voting bloc in Minnesota apparently is pretty strong. 108,000 people out of 6 million total. It's a significant bloc. But I think they have a lot of influence, not only with just Somalis, but also non-Somalis who live in Minnesota. Anybody know anything about the influence Somalis have in Minnesota? Because I don't know anything about it. Tim Walz was trying to avoid backlash. So he said nothing. Now, Somali turnout was decisive for the Democrats in 2024. I'm assuming they mean at state-level elections. Now, Dr. Oz. We know Dr. Oz. He is the administrator of CMS. He issued a 60-day ultimatum threatening to cut Minnesota's $7 billion in federal Medicaid matching funds unless Tim Walz freezes providers, verifies claims, and rebuilds oversight systems immediately. So CMS, basically, they do internal audits that say they had never seen anything like this. So Dr. Oz says Tim Walz has 60 days to do the following. As I just said, he has to freeze providers, verify claims. Yes.
Have you seen the cover of my microscope?
I have not. Look in your toy basket. So he has to freeze providers, verify claims, and rebuild oversight systems immediately. He has 60 days to do so. we'll see what actually happens with that. The whole point is they're putting the heat on Tim Walz to do something about this. Now he has to do something. Now, Somali community leaders, guess what they have to say about this? Guess what they say? They are warning that there will be backlash. It is backlash. There is backlash that is intensifying, and that Trump's termination of TPS, I don't even know what that is, but let's see. I might not need to know. It inflames collective punishment narratives despite the vast majority being law-abiding and employed. Okay, so what they're saying is, and these hashtags, Somali fraud and deport them, there are hashtags about this, whatever, has served with racist content. In other words, Somalis in Minnesota are saying that the backlash from this fraud, this scandal, is making a bunch of people talk about negatively about Somalis in general, rather than just the individual Somalis involved in this scam. Now, I would agree that of 108,000 Somalis in Minnesota, most of them have nothing to do with this. Probably fewer than 2% have anything to do with this. And they're saying that this is leading to backlash against all Somalis, and that now people have a negative idea about Somali people in general, especially in Minnesota. And they're talking about deporting them, and this is racism and it's hurtful and harmful to our community. I say, bullshit, get over it. That's what I said. It's not that they're wrong. They're not wrong in that, yes, there probably are some people who now have a negative view of Somalis after what happened here in Minnesota. Same way some people had negative views of Middle Easterns after what happened on 9/11. Get over it. That's what I say. Get over it. That's how it goes. Sticks and stones. And if some people in your community who look like you, sound like you, and come from the same place as you did something wrong, don't be mad at the people who are now stereotyping your group because of what a few individuals did. They may not be right for doing that, but if you're going to be mad at somebody, don't be mad at those who are doing the stereotyping. Get mad at the people who did the thing that led to the stereotype. That's what you need to be mad at. So as a black man who lives in America, from America, live in America, if there are some black males doing some dumb shit that makes people who are not black have a negative stereotypical view of black men, I think the people who came up with the stereotypical view are not thinking logically and objectively. Yes, that is true. At the same time, I'm looking at those black guys and saying, knowing this, knowing that people create stereotypical views of others based on small pieces of information, you mofos are making me look bad by your behavior. So I need y'all to clean up your behavior because you're making me look bad because other people don't think as logically as I do. And they don't look at everything on a case-by-case basis. They stereotype. So if they see people like y'all who look like me doing something dumb, they're going to, when they see me, they're going to think I'm going to do something dumb. And that can hurt me before I even have a conversation with this person. So you are making things worse for me. You need to clean your shit up. And in every community, I've talked about this many times when it comes to black Americans, is that in every community, let's call it the positive cachet of the community, for lack of a better term, is based in how well does that community police its own? How well does the community police its own? What do you do when somebody from your own group is making your group look bad? Do you get mad at the people who come up with a negative idea of the group, or do you get mad at the person who did the thing that led to the negative idea? I say the first thing you do is you check what's going on in your own community. Then you check the people outside. First thing you do is get your own house in order. Then you check the people outside the house. That's the order of operations. So stereotyping people based on one little experience or one small piece of information is not a good idea. I'm on the record. Make sure everybody heard that. It's not a good idea to stereotype a group based on the actions of one or a few or even 100 people from one group. But at the same time, if I'm part of that group that's being stereotyped, the first thing I'm doing is checking the people in the group. Wait a minute. What are y'all doing that's leading people to think this way? Are you doing something wrong? If you're not doing anything wrong, then I'm going to check the people outside. Like, wait a minute. You're coming up with stereotype based on nothing. But if you're doing something wrong, then I got to check them and say, okay, what you're doing is not helping us and it's not helping our reputation in the outside world. Then understand we need to go work in this outside world. We need to go engage with these people. If you're a minority living in the United States of America, or you're a minority in the United States of America. So if you're assuming, let's just assume that at some point you're going to go have to deal with people who are the majority, then what they think about your group as a whole and their stereotypes about your group as a whole, they matter. Even if you think their stereotypes are wrong, the stereotypes still matter. Because when you walk in the room, the first thing they're going to be thinking about is when's the last time I saw somebody who looked like that? And what were they doing? Which means if you're out here acting dumb, acting like you ain't got no sense, like you don't have a mama, Like you were mixed up in some test tube. Now you're making me look bad. So I'm going to check you because you're part of the community that I come from. And if you get your shit together, then they'll have a positive stereotype, and a positive stereotype will work for us. Our reputation will precede us in a positive way rather than our reputation preceding us in a negative way. So the Somalis who are saying that now people are going to have negative stereotypes about Somalians because of what happened, they're right. Yes, they're right. And they say that's not a good thing. They're also right about that. I agree on both points. And here's the point they're not giving. They need to check their own people instead of checking the outside people. So that's what I would say to the Somalis who are listening to this, if any of you are listening. Y'all need to check your own people. All right, what did your people do that led to this negative stereotype? Is there an answer to the question? And the answer is yes, and you need to address that first. Then you go talk to the people on the outside. Again, order of operations within an organization, within a community. Check your own people first. Now, the DOJ has already seized luxury homes, foreign real estate, high-end vehicles, jewelry, and offshore accounts. So the DOJ basically catch you. You do some kind of fraud, and it's documented, they're going to catch you. Illustrating the scale of enrichment these fraudsters achieved in just a few years. 59 convictions, a dozen more cases pending. State officials say that the government is politicizing the scandal. I say, of course they're politicizing the scandal. Are y'all new around here? Every scandal gets politicized. If the Republican side has something bad happen, you're going to put it on the Republicans. If the Democrats has something bad, you're going to put it on the Democrats. This is the game. They know the game. Now, they say 2019 and 2020 emails show warnings were dismissed internally. So there's a paper trail for all of this, and a bunch of people are going to go to jail for this. Long story short. Now, Megyn Kelly talked about this. She has City Journal investigators. They say they ignored the audit data, which I already told you. And critics caution that the narrative is being used to malign an entire ethnic community. I already pointed this out. I say, so what? And some Somali Americans, the ones who didn't break the law, they're saying that this is a painful betrayal. I don't know who they're talking about betrayed them. Are they talking about their own people, or are they talking about outsiders? They should be talking about their own people, because that's who they should need to be blaming here. Most people say this is a failure of the state of Minnesota. We know it is. That's on Tim Walz. And defenders of Tim Walz say the Republican focus ignores the mastermind, Amy Bach, who is not Somali. I agree. We got to give a point to Tim Walz. Okay, so Tim Walz. If anybody on Tim Walz's team is listening, we got to give a point to Tim Walz. The mastermind of this whole thing was a white woman, Amy Bach. All right, that ain't no Somalian. The prosecutors countered that the operational networks executing the fraud were overwhelmingly tied to the Somali-run shell companies. Both points are true. Now, 78 out of the 86 defendants had links to the Somali community. So that's a heavy link. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, federal investigators signal phase 2. Oh, this is just phase 1, folks. We're not even halfway through. Phase 2 is going to target the financial conduits. That's the people who helped launder the money. Transport networks, and intermediaries who move money overseas. All of this becomes wire fraud. As soon as you do something that involves, if you do something that is fraudulent and you use wires at any point, wire can just be the internet. Just so all of you understand what these charges mean. If you use the internet at any point as part of a scheme to defraud people intentionally, that is technically wire fraud. You could be charged with wire fraud. The penalty for wire fraud is up to 20 years federally. Same thing with mail fraud. If you use the mail at any point, literally sending mail, DHL, FedEx, UPS, USPS. Use the mail at any point as part of your scheme, even if the thing that you mailed was not actually the scheme. The scheme can have been something you did on the internet, but you sent mail as part of it. Then you could be charged with mail fraud. So all these people getting hit with mail fraud and wire fraud. That's 40 years right there, or 20 years concurrent. And they say the scandal is far from over, and Minnesota may face deeper political fallout. So this indicates additional indictments are likely in 2026. That's guaranteed to happen, because now what happens is, any of you know anything about how these cases happen, especially when we got all these people getting charged and all these people pleading guilty. These are people pleading guilty. They're not even going to trial. They're pleading guilty, which means they're throwing their mercy on the court and saying, please give me a lesser sentence because I'm going to plead guilty and not make you take me to trial to win. So they had this thing in court called the trial tax. Trial tax is when the prosecutors come to you and they offer you maybe a plea deal. And if you don't accept the plea deal, you decide to go to trial and you lose, you get a worse sentence because you made them do the work of having to take you to trial just to get you down. But if instead you plead and don't do the trial, then they're a little bit nicer. So the trial tax, they're asking to not tax me on the trial. I'll just plead guilty. And when somebody pleads guilty, what's another thing they often do? Anybody know the answer? Somebody gets hit with a charge and they plead guilty. What's another thing that they often will do in the process of pleading guilty? So they know that they got him. They know that the prosecutors have him dead to rights. You know you're going to get caught. What's the other thing they do? They'll say, "Oh, y'all got it." Jake Lancaster, Captain Hawk, yeah, Larry Arizona. Well, we already know about the pleading part. Yeah, Carla, Jake. So a bunch of you got it. They start telling. They start telling on everybody else. All right, let me tell you everybody who was involved. Yeah, you got me, but here's 18 other people who were involved in the process. Let me tell you what they did. So this is only phase one. I think they say phase two, but I think there's going to be a phase three, might be a phase four, because all these people who are getting convicted right now and getting all these years, or they're getting hit, they're getting facing these years. So they come to them and they say, "Hey, Mike," or "Hey, Nassim, we got you on this. You're pleading guilty. Listen, right now you're looking at 9 years. We're looking at a 9-year sentence right now. That's what we're gonna recommend the judge give you 9 years. Now, here's what we can do, Nassim. We know that you weren't working by yourself. Now, 3 of the people you were working with, we already got them charged, so we don't need information on them. But if there's anybody else you were working with, the more information you can give us, the more you'll help us, and the better you help us, the more we can recommend to that judge to give you a lighter sentence. Maybe you're looking at maybe only 2 years. Maybe only a year and 5 years probation, if you can help us out. But you got to be completely honest. You got to tell us everything. You leave anything out, then we're going right back to that 9. We might give you 15 just because you lied to us. Give us everything you got. Now, Nassim's going to tell them everything. Now, that's 25 more charges, 25 more indictments. Now, multiply that by 78 people getting charged. That's how this gets bigger and bigger. So phase one was just getting the frontline people, the idiots who got caught because they were putting themselves out there on Front Street. Phase two is going to be the people who were not stupid, but they were still doing criminal activity, and now they're going to get caught, not because they did something to put them on Front Street. You see, all the people who are doing things that got put on Front Street, they got charged in the first wave. These other people who are about to get charged in the second wave, they weren't on Front Street. Front Street is a colloquialism, folks. It means doing something that draws attention to yourself, doing something to intentionally draw attention to yourself, such as buying a Rolex or a Lamborghini when you know you got the money illegally. That's stupid. Now, if you buy a Rolex or Lamborghini and you got the money honestly, then fine, do what you want. But if you did something illegal and then you bought a Lamborghini, you're an idiot. You're putting yourself on Front Street. Now, these next wave of people didn't put themselves on Front Street, but they're going to get arrested anyway. They're going to get indicted anyway because the people who went on Front Street, mind you, these people are dumb. If you do illegal business with a stupid person, you're probably going to get caught because the stupid person is going to do something to implicate you. That's what happens. So any of you ever do anything illegal, do it with smart people who know not to draw attention to themselves. You do illegal business with somebody who draws attention to themselves, you're going to get caught even if you don't do that. So, someone said I misused colloquialism. No, I didn't. Colloquialism means common term. Front Street is a common term. It's a common term where I come from. Front Street means doing something that draws a bunch of attention to yourself. That's a colloquialism because it's a common term. It's the commonly used way of it. Technically, Front Street logically means an actual street called Front Street. In Philadelphia, where I'm from, there's a street called Front Street. So I don't mean they put themselves on the street in Philadelphia. What I mean is they did something to draw attention to themselves. That's not a misuse of the term. Anyway, all that said, everybody, shall I take a restroom break? Yes, let me take a restroom break. And then we will get into the commentary. And who was that? Keep on living for life. Congratulations to you. Let me open up the soundboard and we'll give you a sound since you tried to come in here and try to correct me on something, but you actually ended up being wrong.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay?
All right. Don't try to correct me on language. I'm pretty good at communication.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
So all that said, let me take a quick restroom break, folks. Give me 90 seconds and we will get to keep on saying I am that guy. You are that guy. Yeah, you're the guy who got the first wrong correction of the day. I'll be back in 90 seconds. All right, here we go. Let's see. We get the girlies on YouTube say, "You're that guy. You're the guy that put on Front Street." Yeah, pretty much. That's what I did. Howard said, "This angers me beyond belief. RICO charges for the criminals. They might get RICO charges. We'll see." Shanita Jones said, "Now that Trump is president, he'll get the blame because he's racist. The Democrats don't care." No, it's going to be hard for them to put this on Trump. It's going to be hard for them to do that. They might try, but that ain't going to stick. They can try, though. I don't think it's going to work. Let's see what we got going on in the comments. I'm coming over to TikTok now, where most of the comments are usually on TikTok. Jazzy said, "Oh, my God." Carla said, "Take the key and lock them up. Lock him up, my fair lady." Yeah, we'll see. Buru said, "Who wasn't on Epstein's list?" Why are people bringing up Epstein? What does that have to do with this? Scooby said, "Comment towards the feed, not at each other." Well, I'm only reading the ones that are commenting on the feed. The ones that are ats, I'm not reading those. That's y'all talking to each other. Howard said, "This took a network of criminal fraudsters, so I don't believe it was individuals. RICO charges for Omar Walsh and other political enablers." We'll see about that. I don't know if they can get it on to the politicians, because the politicians would have had to been complicit in doing it. Now, if they just didn't do it because they didn't want to get backlash, I don't think you can get a crime. I don't think you can charge them with a crime for that. And Walls, that would have to go way up the ladder to get it to Walls. I don't think it's going to go that far. Maybe some other people whose names we don't know. Let's see. Jazzy said, "Critical status." Carl says, "Number one job now is don't drop the soap." Who are you talking about? Tim Walz? Tim Walz ain't going to jail for this. You have to go way up to get Tim Walz on it. You have to go way up the ladder. You know how many levels of bureaucracy there is in a state? He ain't going to jail. He's going to get he's going to get negative press, but he's not going to jail. Curtis Mays says, "The backlash." Edward Brooks says, "Looks like those people need to scale the cars and Royces for lawyer fees." Well, they can't sell them or sell the car. They can't. The government took them. If you go buy something with illegally obtained money, the government finds out, they seize the thing that you bought. So it's not yours. They just take it. So if you bought a house, they take your house. If you bought a watch, they take your watch. You bought a car, they take your car. So they can't sell them. And even if they did sell them, the government will come take it back from that person. The person might be asked out. I would say he should start a podcast with Mayor Pete. No, I hope not. I hope he doesn't start a podcast. And Tim Walz is not somebody I will want to listen to talk. Sarah Asher said, "But will any of these people get in trouble?" Sarah, they got in more than trouble. They already got 56 convictions out of 60. 60 convictions out of 78 indictments. So all they're doing is getting convictions. These people are getting in more than trouble. These people are getting in jail cells is what is happening. And they're going to get more people. Carla said they're taking over Dearborn. I've heard about that. I've heard they're taking over Dearborn, Michigan. Tees and Jeans said, "No one said anything in Orthodoxy, Jewish community, NYC, and they are Republican votes." What does that have to do with anything? Janora, thanks for the follow. Sarah said, "I feel like I'm watching our country fall because of our own laws." I don't think our country is falling quite yet. I think it might. I don't think this situation is the reason why, though. Not quite. Not quite. Mike O said, "Dr. Oz doesn't have that authority." I don't know if he does or he doesn't, but somebody in the government does. They can just say, "We're not going to send you the funds." Sounds like he does. Desara, thanks for the share. XCR, thanks for the share. Carly's here. Thanks for the follow. Mike said, "It's like a GOP distraction from their incompetence." No, I don't think so. No, you get it.
Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
Mike, you get the non sequitur. You get the first non sequitur award of the day for saying that. What does the GOP have to do with any of this? Scooby said, "Who's the moderator? I wouldn't want to offend you." There's a bunch of moderators in here, but I'm just reading the comments. But we allow dissent. Dissent is allowed here. Moderators know we allow dissent. If you dissent against the things that I say, you got to deal with the other commentators who might call you on your bullshit, or you might deal with me putting you on the soundboard. So you're allowed to dissent if you wish. Now, if your dissent is accurate, then I will give you credit for it. If your dissent is some nonsense, you're going to get called out. That's the way it works. Pure Fan said temporary protection status. Oh, that's what that is. TPS. Okay. Got it. Temporary protection status. That temporary protection status is what the moderators from the VP debate were using against J.D. Vance when he was calling things out. Gail Hanks said, "Why are they even saying anything? Thought they were being deported." Well, they might get deported. They might not. I don't think many of them are going to get deported because they're going to fight that. Niece said Somalians probably saying being targeted now. Yes, they are saying that. That's exactly what they're saying. Temporary protection status. Okay, so a bunch of you know what that is. I didn't know what it was. Now I know. Gail said this is what they voted for. Pretty much. NJ a County Honor Guard. I said absolutely. JJ Lee said pattern recognition. Yes, and I blame whoever did something that led to that being a pattern. Steve Hurl, but yes, that's exactly what it is. Marina said guilty by association. Yes, exactly. Juju said the over 80% on welfare is what adding to that negative view. Yes, it's not even just the act of being on welfare. It's how people behave. It's not being on welfare to make somebody look bad. It's what you do and you're on welfare is what makes people look bad. Most people might not even know you're on welfare. I could walk past somebody in the street and not know they're on welfare or not. I'm looking at your behaviors. Echo said, have to drive, keep tapping to get our host to 100K. Peeps, you all have a fabulous day. Thank you, Echoes 9711. And we're already at 114K, so we're doing great here. Thank you, everybody. DNG said, is a cultural issue, entitlement, culture, fraud, culture. Said culture 3 times. Culture issue, entitlement culture, and fraud culture. Okay, got it. Gail says Somalis for Trump, remember? No, I don't remember. Was that a thing? Somalis voted for Trump? I didn't know that to be true. Smash, said correct. It's temporary, but same concept. Scooter 5150, thanks for the follow. NJ said a few individuals, $8 billion thefts. Yeah, I don't know where the $8 billion is calculated here. From what I've seen, they said up to $1 billion. But if it's $8 billion, then again, they're not done. There's a lot more happening here. And it depends on how they count it. But also when investigations come out and they're trying to get headline news, they inflate the numbers sometimes to make it seem bigger than it is. Now, it might be real, $8 billion, but it might not be. So take that number with a grain of salt. But it does look like it's a lot of money. Just off the numbers that I shared with you, we're looking at least hundreds of millions of dollars. Style by Terry said, well said. Thank you. Gerald Miller, thanks for the share. NJ said, you make your own self look that way. Well, what if somebody never met you before, but somebody who looks like you did something dumb? Now people are going to think that about you. That's what I'm saying. Sarah said, we have to win the midterms or we're toast. Well, somebody's going to be toast because everybody can't win the midterms. Right now, as it stands, the midterms were today, the Democrats would win. So I don't know if you're a Democrat or a Republican, but if you're a Republican, you're toast as of today. But things can change. It's only December. Things can change. F. Trump, we won, said people had their own assumptions and who people are by the race of their skin. Yes, also known as the stereotype. That's exactly what I was talking about. JJ Lee said, I can tell a Somalian they are mean people too. They're mean people.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Well, maybe some of them are mean. Some white people are mean. Some Jewish people are mean. Some black people are mean. Some Latin people are mean. But what does the Somalian have to do with being mean? And again, there are some that are nice though, right? JJ Lee. F. Trump said, just because you wear a suit doesn't make you educated. All right, there we go.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Somebody says that like every day.
I like your funny words, Magic Man.
And who was that? F. Trump, you are correct. Just because I wear a suit does not mean that I'm educated. Number one, you are correct. But this is first of all, you got the ad hominem for saying that, and you got the non sequitur for saying that. Non sequitur means it does not follow. Meaning you're making one point and another point, they don't follow together. First of all, when somebody wears a suit, that doesn't mean that they're trying to prove that they're educated. It just is that they put on a suit. Same way if I had on jeans and a t-shirt, what does that mean? Is that supposed to mean anything? No. Secondly, I am educated because I have a college degree. Usually in America, colloquially, when we say educated, it means somebody who went to school. I have a college degree, so that actually means that I am educated. So
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
but what you're saying here is not what you are actually trying to say. What I think you're trying to say is that the way that I'm explaining this, maybe you disagree with it, and you're trying to say that maybe I'm not intelligent or I'm not smart because I'm wearing a suit, not that I'm educated. Just because you went to school doesn't mean you're smart. I know a lot of people went to school, got degrees, and they're not very smart people. I don't think that's the point you were trying to make, even though I did go to school and I am a smart person. I'm a smart person because I'm a smart person, not because I went to school. So that's why you got the ad hominem.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
And you got the non sequitur. And again, overall, you are right. Wearing a suit does not make you educated or smart or intelligent, but I am educated, smart, and intelligent, and it's not because of the suit. I make the suit. The suit does not make me. So congratulations to you. You get the Russell Westbrook.
Oh, baby, a triple! Oh, yeah!
Russell Westbrook triple-double award. First one of the day. Congratulations, F. Trump. We won. It's the name of his account. So we know where you stand. Leather and Pearls, good morning. Henny said Million Man March. I remember that. Frankenstein said only 1% thinks 1% thinks logical. I think you're right. You're right about that. Gail said trust but verify. That's right. F. Trump said you are who you are by color. What does that mean? Uh, let's see. New Noop on YouTube said because white persons are locked out of the system. New said this will in turn produce laws to protect white persons and to prevent replacement from ever occurring again. White countries have a right to exist. What's a white country? What does that mean? Frankenstein said, who's watching the government? Nobody. Doge, Elon Musk. He was watching for about 3 months and he saw what happened when he started doing that. And he said, let me go back to running Tesla. That's easier. DNG said, are we going to stereotype people based off Bernie Madoff and Jeffrey Epstein? Well, some people did. Not everybody, but some people did. It's human nature to stereotype. Stereotypes are human nature. So nobody is immune to stereotyping others. Everybody does it. Not everybody admits to it, but everybody does it. Hills, thanks for the follow. Gail Hank said, maybe the Somali can erase their negative history to look better. Okay, what do you mean by that? Henny said, bro, the racism, bigotry, and scapegoating is on a level never seen before. I disagree. I don't think so. I think it's the same as it's always been. Racism has always existed. Bigotry has always existed. Scapegoating has always existed. Only thing different now is that we have the internet, so now every person in the world can tell you what they feel and what they think. Whereas 20 years ago, you only talk to the people you knew to tell them what you thought. Now everybody can tell the whole world. That's the only thing that's changed. But the amount of racism we had back then is the same amount we got now. People feel like there's more of it simply because you can hear about it more often. And also now, because of the things that have happened over the last 10 years, you have a lot of minorities who are taking advantage of the, what we want to call it, the privileges, for lack of a better term, that minorities can receive by threatening claims of racism. And they're taking advantage of it by searching for and accusing racism even where it does not exist. Like these Somalis saying that you're being racist, Minnesota, by looking over our books and our documentation before you disperse millions of dollars to us for doing business that we're not actually doing. That's one of the ways that racism is being accused, even though no racism was happening there. And that's happening over and over and over again. So it's not that racism has increased at all. Actually, racism has decreased, but it feels like it has increased because everybody is using it as a offensive weapon these days. So that's how I feel about racism. Or at least the amount of racism is how I feel about it. Frankenstein said, I can't believe this. What can you not believe? Carla said, Besant said they, the Treasury, are tracking the money and most went to Somalia. Well, that's when it becomes an international thing. That's when you got the terrorism thing, and that's how this can get a lot bigger. Slick Pendergrass said they should have kept quiet. LOL, talking about they like Trump. LOL. Is that what the Somalians vote for Trump in 2024? I didn't know that was a thing. I thought they were on the left. Beanie, thanks for the follow. Scooby says only the Somali issue today. That's the topic. If that's what you're asking. Gail said, so we had to feed and house them in prison, or do they get deported? Probably mostly the former. They're not getting deported. I wouldn't think they're going to get deported. Follow me. Thanks for the follow. Nee said, give up others when you plead guilty. Yeah, because they want to stay out of jail. Jake said, a lot of plea deals require cooperation. Yeah, so they can even require cooperation. Yes, like you said there. Good addition. Carl said 9 years of permanent deportation. Well, why would you have to do both? Just deport me. Don't give me the 9 years. Just deport me now. Gail said I would turn into an African gray bird. What does that mean? Keep on living said Trump's biggest apologist. Trump's not even a topic here today.
Emotional, damn it.
Keep on. Congratulations on getting the appeal to emotion. I give you the appeal to emotion because you clearly have TDS. You should get some medicine for that. Frankenstein said China does not have plea bargaining. I've heard they don't. Ain't no plea bargaining over there, and you don't win cases over there. You go to court there, you will not get found not guilty. You're getting found guilty. It's just a matter of how much time you got to do in jail. Carl said people with TDS are trying their best to pivot and change the narrative to Trump. Yeah, they are. JJ Lee said I'm from Philly too. All right, shout out to everybody from Philly. Where in Philly are you from? JJ Lee. Frankenstein said, wow, you're amazing. Thank you. I agree. Mimi Melanie, thanks for the follow. Let's see. Not influencing says, so it begins. Yes. Gail said, I never heard of that word. What word? What word you never hear of? Where was I? Lost my spot in the comments here. All right, there we go. Carl said, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Dora said, Elon Omar husband business was also financed by the government. Well, as long as it's legal, that's fine. A lot of people get money from the government. Abe said, Dre, you're doing a great job of covering this. Thank you. Abe said, been following since 2010. Shout out to people following me since before the suit back in the basketball days. Gail Hank said, nothing sticks to Trump. I don't think that's true. 34 felonies. Everybody knows about that. That stuck. It didn't do anything, but it stuck. Carl said, people are bringing up Epstein because they are Democrat sheep with TDS. Okay, fair enough. Tommy Brown said, people will get at you because you're trying to elite them. What does that mean? JJ said he needs to, and Omar, they would have to connect the crimes to them. I don't think either of them would get involved in this. I don't think they'd be that dumb. But we'll see. I think this is just the first wave. They already said this is the first phase. So there's going to be a second phase, which is when all the convictions start telling on everybody else. And then they get the quiet people involved. And then there may be a third phase. So I think this may be another phase. Erica said, being a freaking not a Rico OG wait wrong situation. Oh, wait, wrong situation. I don't know what that means. Jake said they will get his underlings. Walls is no more than likely well insulated on this, unfortunately. Yes, and that's assuming he had anything to do with it. Maybe he had nothing to do with it. People got to understand when you're the governor of a state, you're dealing with super high level stuff. I doubt he had anything. He probably didn't even know this was happening. So even though you may not like Tim Walz, I doubt he even knew this was happening. And under him, there's a person who's under that person. There's a person under that person, under that person, under that person. Then you get to the Department of Education. And even the people in the department probably didn't know this was happening. They got told from on high, hey, don't press too hard on the Somalis because we don't want them to politically make us look bad. So just give them whatever they submit, just give it to them. That's not a crime. That's just them being stupid. But being stupid is not a crime. So I don't think anybody in the state, at least at the high level, has anything to do with this because they wouldn't be that dumb. That's my theory about it. Carlos said, Besson said today we're aiming for Walz. Besson is the Treasury Secretary. All right, you're probably right that they're aiming for him, but aiming for him and getting him are two different things. They're aiming, but they ain't getting them. So I think they can try. I say good luck. That's what I said. They're aiming for Tim Walz. Erica said, being a freako is not a Rico. Wait, wrong person. I see what you're saying, but I don't know what that means. What's the joke? Abe said, Dearborn is Arab. Pepper said they're trying to take over Texas. They got a good grip on Florida, and Columbus, Ohio is starting to. Who is they? Who are you talking about, Pepper? Tommy Brown, thank you. Sheila, thank you for the share. JJ Lee said, when is Omar getting deported? Never. Mimi said, how are you going to say this wasn't fraud? I never said it wasn't fraud. These people already been charged and convicted for fraud. It's wire fraud, it's mail fraud, and a bunch of other frauds. Carl said, are any people involved in this fraud Republican? Well, they're not politicians, so I don't know if you can label them one way or another. Jake said, TPS means they have status in the country, work authorization, and path to permanent residence. Yes, that's correct. Pepper said it was Amish for Trump. Yes, I did hear about the Amish for Trump. I never heard about Somalis for Trump. Okay, so a couple of you were saying Somalis for Trump was not a thing. I didn't think it was, unless it was something I didn't know about. Scooby said Canadians for Trump. All right, that's fine, but Canadians don't vote, so I don't know how much that matters. Gail said, I'm tired of both parties. Fair enough. Abe said, Bernie Madoff alone, $90 billion today's dollars. Yeah, I read the books on Bernie Madoff. It was crazy what he was doing. He had a high level of trust from a lot of people. Abe said, 2.3 trillion from 9-10 insider trading. Man, he said, but you are smart and educated. Well, thank you. Frankenstein said, do I bother you? Barbie said, there you go, Dre. You make the suit, not the other way around. Well, thank you. JJ said, talk to other Africans, talk about Somalian people. Mimi said, racist adults will stop polluting young minds. Racism might not continue. Let me think about that. Maybe. maybe, that it gets passed down and taught, but also people just come up with their own thoughts. Even a young person can come up with a negative idea about another group because of an experience. And things do get passed down. You're right about that part. But if an adult pollutes the young mind by passing them a bad idea, then you also got to take away the positive ideas that the older person is passing on. Romy Lioness said, "This is much more deeper than you're even talking about." I agree. I think this is enough. This happening here. This could probably become a book. And this is only the first phase. This is not even over. Brown Eye said, "Personally, I think they should go to jail and do some time. That will discourage other immigrants to not commit fraud." Well, discourage any human to not commit fraud. What does that have to do with being an immigrant? Being an immigrant has nothing to do with it. Nobody wants to do crime. They know they're going to get caught. People do crime. They think they'll get away with it. And if you do crime and you get caught, that deters everybody else because they see what happened to you. Let's see. Over on YouTube, it is, I don't know, I think y'all are talking to each other. Noop said, "Are you allowed to criticize white persons?" Yes, so that would indicate a lack of power. What do you mean by that? Romy Lioness said, "There is much more." I already talked about that. Lulu said, "Can you explain racism versus bigotry?" No, I could explain it, but that's not the topic here today. But since you're asking, let's pull it up on, I think that's a Chat GPT level question. Let's let Chat GPT explain racism versus bigotry, because I know people like to argue these semantics. Explain the difference between racism and bigotry, or compare and contrast the two. So let's see. ChatGPT tends to be a little bit slower, but I like ChatGPT for evergreen stuff, and I like Grok for current event stuff. So here, bigotry is personal prejudice. It's an individual attitude. It's one person having strong dislike, hostility, or intolerance toward a group. So a bigot might not like another race, religion, nationality, gender, or lifestyle, but it stays at the level of personal belief or behavior. So bigotry means personal hatred or intolerance. And what ChatGPT says here, it does not require any power. Now, then they say racism equals prejudice plus belief in a racial hierarchy and often power. They had that in parentheses. Racism is bigger than just disliking another race. Racism is a belief that one race is inherently superior or inferior to another, and acting on that belief through discrimination, stereotypes, exclusions, systemic advantages, disadvantages, institutional behavior. Racism is rooted in the idea of race-based hierarchy. Bigotry is, I don't like those people. Racism is, those people are lesser by nature, and that should affect how the world treats them. Racism can involve systems, not just individuals. I actually don't even agree with what ChatGPT is saying here, because by definition, that's not what racism means. But they're giving their explanation. I understand ChatGPT is programmed by who they're programmed by. But the definition of racism, the first definition is a way of thinking. It's not a behavior. The definition has been expanded, though. So there's an argument about the two things. So Lulu's Nana, that answers your question. I don't agree with the way they broke it down, but that's what ChatGPT says. A lot of people agree with that, though. So you do with that what you wish. Karmatic said, "More intelligent Americans like you, please." Well, thank you. Roaming Lioness said, "I'm talking about global control." Well, that's not the topic here today. Karina said, "People believe anything. There's no Somalis voting for their demise." Yeah, I didn't think so. And where was I? JJ said they will definitely be deported. I wouldn't speak so soon. I don't think so. Roaming Lioness said, "When digital ID is rolled out, is game over." Well, that part I agree with, Roaming Lioness. That part you're right. Rory Iglever said, "Our prisons are probably better than life in Somalia." They might be. And when you get out of prison, you're still in America. So that's a good thing. JJ said, "You from Frankfurt?" Shout out to Frankfurt. Vince's Toy Gallery said, "West Philadelphia, born and raised." So you just singing a song, or are you actually from West Philadelphia? Christy, thank you for the lightning bolt. Lynn, thanks for the share. JJ said, "One felony, 34 counts." All right, fair enough. Gail said, "I meant African gray birds talking. I would turn to Somalis to help with the crime." Okay. I didn't know what you meant by that. I know they talked. African gray birds. Erica said, "The first comment was auto-corrected." I figured it was. That's why I didn't know what you were saying. Tara said, "Ignorance of the law is not an excuse." Yes, you're correct. But were they actually committing a crime? I don't think so. If you're okaying some documentation that got sent to you as a government official, that's not a crime. Now, the people committing the crime were the people who are filing the documents. And if you're told they filed the documents, the COVID is here, the virus is here, we're doing less oversight, so just okay it because we can't give resources to looking at them. We're just going to okay whatever they send in because we got to focus over here. You're not doing a crime. That's not a crime. So if that's all they got, those people are not getting convicted. They would need a lot more than that, as far as I'm concerned. But if you see something that I'm not seeing, you tell me. Kim said whistleblowers supposedly told Walls, according to Senator Kennedy. Maybe they did. That's not going to be enough to convict him, though. They told him is not enough. And what is he responsible for doing? What did he actually do? Those questions all have to be answered. That's not enough information to get him convicted. Yeah, we are a long way from getting the governor convicted. He's not getting convicted on this. Take my word for it. Heck says, it's Walls' job to know what's happening to billions of dollars in his state. Technically, you're correct, but that's not enough to get him convicted because somebody did something wrong. That's like saying is Donald Trump's job to know what's going on in the federal government. That doesn't mean because somebody in the government is committing a crime that Donald Trump has to go to jail. That's a stretch. So I know some of you don't like Tim Walz, but it's a stretch to say that he's responsible for this. He's not going to jail for this. He's not even getting charged. My prediction. Erica said it was a P. Diddy joke. Okay, I see. Well, if P. Diddy was the topic, then I would know what you were talking about, but he's not the topic. Pepper says Somali is Muslim. Karina says Somali saying all this is misinformation as if there aren't convictions. Yeah, this has been going on for a while. Aza Dog of War says Somalians were duped into endorsing Trump. I don't think the Somalians endorsed Trump. I don't think that's the thing. Sold by Misty, good morning. Abe says Sam Altman owns ChatGPT OpenAI. Yeah, I know. And they program it a certain way. There's certain things I've asked ChatGPT that it refuses to engage in. So I know what topics to just not even bother with ChatGPT because ChatGPT leans a little bit to the left if you ask it political questions. Or a lot to the left, depending on who you ask. So I use it for evergreen stuff that's not leaning on a political thing. If I want something that's more on a political side, I go to Grok. Because Grok is owned by Elon and it's X and is a little bit more free speechy, so to speak, than ChatGPT, in my experience. Jay Lee said he is. You talking about Tim Walz? Tim Walz ain't getting charged. No. He's going to get negative political backlash, but they would have to prove that he has something to do with it. How are you going to do that? Flacco said the left get away with everything. I don't think so. Frankenstein said, get Dr. Phil on the job. To do what? What's his job? What does he need to do? Scott Young said, I don't think any of this will be linked to Walls, but somewhere in Treasury Department. Yes, exactly. So what Scott Young said here is exactly what I was saying earlier, is that there's so many levels between the Department of Education, their approval department, approving these invoices and all this stuff, and Tim Walz. You got so many people you got to go through. They would have to bring this all the way up the chain of command to the governor to get him indicted, let alone convicted. And you know how long that would take? No, that's not happening. And why would he do that? Tim Walz can enrich himself as governor of the state in many more ways, much more cleanly and legally than doing this. He would not need to be involved in this scam. There's a lot of other ways Tim Walz can put money in his pocket. He don't need to do this. That would be dumb of him. I Create Reality said, you approve of him calling them garbage. Who is him and who is them? Who are you talking about? On Instagram there. Karina said, you can't depend on ChatGPT when it comes to current events they pull from left-wing sources. Well, also, ChatGPT is just slow. I like Grok because Grok is connected to X, and X is the town square of the internet. So if you want to know what's going on in the world, X is the place to see what the current conversation is. That's why I like using X/Grok for current event stuff, because they have the most up-to-date what's actually being said and who's putting material out there. And that's where I get my news from. I get my news from X. So that's why I like Grok for current event stuff. I like ChatGPT for evergreen things. That's not leaning on any side, is not politically related. So I don't use ChatGPT for that. But evergreen stuff is great for it. Flacco said, you're correct on AI being a left. Yeah, I know. It's in Silicon Valley. Everybody knows that Silicon Valley is heavily left. Jake said, Tim is more than likely very insulated. His underlings will get jammed up. The underlings to the underlings to the underlings will get jammed up. It's many levels between the governor and what happened here. So it won't even be his underlings. It's going to be people way below him that are going to get caught up in this. If they get caught up. Again, remember, what defense the government of Minnesota has is we stopped doing the oversight because of the virus. So we put the virus as our priority. We stopped doing oversight on these other things, but we knew the kids still needed to eat. So we just rubber stamped everything they did. We just okayed every invoice because we had to focus on these things over here. If that's true, you have no charges against the government. You have nothing because we just okayed it. Now, if they start lying in order to steal money from us, then they get convicted for that. But that doesn't make us wrong for okaying it because our priority was the virus. That is not a crime by the government. That's just the government getting taken advantage of. That's what it is. Which is what it looks like right now. Now, if somebody in the government was involved, then they're going to get caught because all this stuff is paperwork. If you're doing crime and it's all documented, you're going to get caught. If you're sending emails, text messages, like all that can get in the FBI. They can basically go through anything that's ever been transmitted. Abe said Elon Musk and his white genocide nonsense in South Africa gets corrected to by his own AI. Yeah, I saw about that. Jared said, I'm sure he was getting kickbacks. Who? Tim Walz? I highly doubt he was getting kickbacks. I Create said, Trump calling Somali people garbage. I need to know the context in which he said it, because people tend to take things that Trump say and they expand them to mean more than what he actually meant. I would need the context in which he said that, if he said it. Kim A said, do you think Omar is worth $30 million? Didn't she say she was worth $30 million? I think she was saying that her net assets were $30 million. If she said it, then I think she's telling the truth. Why would you report your assets to be more than they actually are? If you report your assets to be more than they are, that means the government just charges you more in taxes. So that'd be stupid. I think she might be underreporting how much she's worth, actually. Jazz Does It said X is the best news. I agree. And by the way, Omar, I believe it's her husband, owns a company that has just seen an increase in value. So that's not out of the realm of possibility. Abe said X has the most bots. Yeah, every social media app has bots, but X still is very good for news. Jazz said I go to X for news over MSN. Me too. I get all my news from X. If I want to know what's going on in the world, I get it from X. So any of you want to know where I get my topics from, it's from looking at X and seeing what's being talked about. That's how I find out what the news of the day is. And I listen to Megyn Kelly. So I do listen to Megyn Kelly's podcast and X. That's the way I know. And usually the biggest news are usually in both places. Simply blessed. Thanks for the follow. Abe said, X is sensationalism from MAGA bots based in India and Nigeria. Okay. Lynn, thanks for the lightning bolt. CC sent the you're awesome. Thank you. Frankenstein said, is Waltz good? As far as this goes, I think he's fine. I think he's way too far away from this. Now, do I think he's good as a governor? I don't know. I don't live in Minnesota. I don't think it would have been good for him to become vice president. So it's a good thing he didn't win in 2024. Carla said, Omar played a role in the fake restaurant setup as a business. They are following the money. Well, if she did, then and they're following the money, they'll find her. Now, let's see if that happens. But it has to happen first. So we can't just go and implicating people and stuff where we don't have anything to go off of. You got to have at least some evidence here, folks. Not liking them is not evidence. I say, y'all not liking Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz is not evidence enough to say they're going to get charged. Now, there's some evidence. Now we got a different conversation. Erica B said, get the likes up for the live ends. Yes, get the likes up. She said we should be at 200. I don't know if we're going to get to 200. We're at 142. We can get to 150 because I'm going to wrap this up in a minute. A Tired Soul, thank you for the lightning bolt. Abe said, Ilhan's husband is Jewish. What's the significance of that? Why does that matter? Kim H said, do you think she was in on the fraud and that's why she had millions? I don't think so. I think that's her husband owns a business that does actual business and the value of the business went up. That happens all the time. That's not some crazy thing. So no, I don't think that's how she got the money. Absolutely not. And do I think she was in on the fraud? I have no way of saying yes or no. She hasn't been implicated, so I have no reason to say that she was. And if she was, then she's going to get heat just like everybody else. Sam said, where's my Doge or tariffs check? Well, the idea was only floated out there. They didn't say they were going to actually do it. So where is it? It doesn't exist, Sam Smith. So keep looking. Keep waiting by the mailbox. Pepper said, Omar's brother, that's who they say and she married. I've heard people saying that. I don't know enough about it. I don't really care that much about it to dive into it. But she says one thing, other people say other things. Vince's Toy Gallery said we can ask Jeeves for news. Does that website still exist? I thought he just changed it to ask.com. They took the Jeeves out. But I remember when that site came out, askjeeves.com. And it was like this revolutionary thing because you could just ask a question. It would just answer it. It was like Chat GPT before Chat GPT. Jake said, "What's tomorrow's topic? Great show today." Well, thank you, Jake. And answer your first question is I don't know. I pick the topic every morning. So today I picked this topic this morning. So I don't pick the topic ahead of time unless it's something, a huge thing that we know is the topic. So for example, when Trump beat Kamala in the election last year, I knew the topic was going to be Donald Trump wins the presidency. When Charlie Kirk got shot, I think it was on a Wednesday, I knew the topic on Thursday was going to be Charlie Kirk. Sometimes the story is so big that I know is going to be the topic tomorrow. This one, and the time that I'm talking to you all, I don't know what's happening in the world because I'm talking to y'all. Let's see if I can see what's happening in the world right now. But I doubt there's anything happening right now that I'm like, all right, this is absolutely going to be the topic tomorrow. It would have to be something crazy. Like somebody shooting at the president or something crazy like that. It would have to be something on that level. And right now, what I'm seeing is not anything that's on that level. This is like, if I could tell you today what tomorrow's topic is going to be, it would have to be world-stopping news. And there's no world-stopping news happening right now. So I get different things based on what I engage with. So I'm getting stuff about the football games yesterday, college football playoffs, Breakfast Club, exchange questions, deportations under Trump. So it's people talking about something that happened on the Breakfast Club. So here's what they're saying about Ilhan Omar, since y'all keep asking. So Ilhan Omar her net worth went from $65K in 2020 to $205K in 2023. And then last year was $30 million. And again, if you own a business, it's very easy for the value of your business to go up significantly in 1 year, especially if you take your company public or you take investor funds. So there's nothing crazy about Ilhan Omar's net worth increasing the way that it did in a short period of time. That happens to people all the time. Mary Ann said, "What about the Sean Combs documentary?" There was nothing new in it. I saw it, or I saw/listened to it. It was a 4-part series that 50 Cent put out. There was nothing new in there. Everything in there is things we already knew. Only thing that was kind of new was they took the stuff from the trial, footage from some people who were involved in the trial, and they spliced that into the rest of the story. But the rest of the story was already known. All the people in that Diddy documentary who were trashing Diddy had been trashing Diddy for like 30 years. So any of you who that's new to you, welcome to hip hop. People have been trashing Diddy for 30 years. Those same people have been in documentaries, YouTube videos, interviews for the last 30 years saying the same things that they said in that video, all of them. Only thing that was new was that you had a couple of the jurors talking, and you had a couple of people who testified against him talking, but we already knew that they didn't like him because they already sued him. Diddy got like 80 lawsuits right now pending against him. Like literally about 80 lawsuits pending against him. So all those people in the documentary are people who have already filed lawsuits against Diddy claiming that he either assaulted them sexually, or he owes them money, or he didn't pay them for something, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was nothing in it that was new, at least not for somebody like me. So the documentary generally is a nothing burger, but I know to a lot of you it might have been new stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let's see. Yeah, it was a Diddy documentary. It's on Netflix, folks. Y'all can look it up on Netflix. That Diddy documentary. It's on Netflix. Came out like last Thursday or Friday. Let's see, where was I? I lost my spot in the comments. I'll take a few more comments, then we'll wrap it up. Tara says she got our tax money. Who? Tara said Congress gets rich off our federal tax dollars. Some say. Noel, good morning. Abe said, I can't even say the J word without it being removed. Yeah, you got to be careful saying that word. Just the rules. Skittle 1031 said birthright citizenship should be tomorrow's topic. Well, usually it's a current event, like something that actually happened. So birthright citizenship is kind of an evergreen topic. So probably not. Unless it gets in the news. If it gets in the news and becomes like the biggest thing, then I'll talk about it. Noel said The Reckoning. Is that the name of that Diddy documentary, The Reckoning? I didn't think it was A Reckoning. It sounded pretty, again, everything that was said in the documentary, I heard like 10 times before. Those same people been doing interviews trashing Diddy since 2005. The same people. They didn't. Oh, so birthright citizenship is a big thing right now. So Supreme Court says regarding birthright citizenship, whoever brought that up, Skittle 1031 said this. Supreme Court announced it will review President Trump's executive order limiting birthright citizenship, potentially reshaping the 14th Amendment's interpretation. Now, if that happens, that's going to be a big deal. Lower courts blocked the policy, which denies automatic citizenship to children born in the U.S. if neither parent is a citizen or green card holder, which is a big deal. The case stems from a class action lawsuit from affected families and could impact millions in immigration policy. Oral arguments are expected in early 2026. So maybe this is something that I might talk about, but nothing has actually happened yet. So it would really just be all theory at this point. So Skittles, this is actually a good idea, which we're throwing out there, but this might not make it. It might not make it to my feed as a topic. But we'll see. Usually I just let the day go by and I wait till the morning tomorrow. I used to pick my topics the day before, but now I don't. Now I just wait till that day because I can come up with points pretty quickly to where I can get into stuff. So I don't need to do that. That's the situation. So all that said, everybody, I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you like this one, come back here tomorrow. If you did not like this one, come back tomorrow anyway. You can hate watch. If you're not sure, come back tomorrow and you'll get you'll be able to decide whether you like this or not. You want to work with me directly, there are several different ways. I'm going to give you my text message number. So everybody's going to text me at this number. One of the moderators, please put this number in the chat. 305-384-6894. 305-384-6894. Send me a text at that number. I send out a daily motivation text every day. It's $5 a month. It's free to text me. But if you want the daily motivation, it's $5 a month. If you want just the weekly motivation, which I send every Monday, I just sent it. It just came out literally 10 minutes ago. That is free. So just text me. You'll get the weekly motivation every week, daily motivation every day if you want it for $5 a month. If you want to get into my Power Presence Protocol, where you have me as your direct coach, where we help you master communication, text the word power. Text me the word power, POWER. Again, this is also the same number, 305-384-6894. If you want links to all my books, where you can get some of my books that you see back here for free, there are a few that we give out for free. You can get those books free. Just text me the word live, as in live stream, LIVE. We'll send you a link to get the live stuff. If you want to get my book, The Third Day, that's that red book right there. That book is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. The decision separates the pros from the amateurs. Text the or the number 3. Text the number 3. We'll send you a link to get The Third Day. Again, the book's free. Just cover the shipping. If you want to get my book, The Mirror of Motivation, the self-guide to self-discipline, text me the word mirror, MIRROR, as in mirror of motivation. Again, just text me 305-384-6894. If you text the word live, we got links to this book, that book, everything is on that one page. Or you can text the word power if you want to have me as your coach. Text the number 3 if you want the red book, The Third Day. Text the word mirror if you want this book, Mirror of Motivation. Then you'll be on my text list. We got a bunch of auto texts that I'll send you as well. Then you get the weekly motivation every Monday. So next one you'll get next week. If you want daily motivation, it's $5 a month. It was like 17 cents a day. It's like Sally Struthers. Remember Sally Struthers back in the day? You can feed a child for 17 cents a day. So 17 cents a day, you get the daily motivation. $5 a month. We'll send you you'll get a text message that says, if you want the daily motivation, just click this link. You can sign up for it. It's $5 a month. My number, again, 305-384-6894. That's my direct text message number. Yes, I will text you back. And I'll show you right now. This is inside my text message right here. So here's my text messages. As you can see, you will not be the only person in here. So there's a bunch of people in here that I text. And each text, this is not a group text. Okay, so I'll be texting you personally, but you're not going to see the text that other people send or the text that I send to other people. But this is my text message line. So you want to get text messages from me. As you can see, there's a lot that I got to go through. Not all these are unread text messages, but you want to work with me directly in my text message, work with me directly. I just told you, text the word power or the word coach. Get the Mirror of Motivation, this book right here. Text the word mirror. You want my book, The Third Day, text the number 3. If you want to get a link to all the stuff you get from the live stream, which is this is a live stream, text the word live. I have a podcast that comes out every day. I don't call this a podcast. Some of you call these podcasting. I don't call this a podcast. I have an actual podcast. I call it a masterclass. Comes out every day for free. It's on Apple and Spotify. It is called Work on Your Game. So you see that book right there, Work on Your Game. That's the name of my company. Work on Your Game is the name of my show. It has over 3,000, almost 5,000, almost 4,000 episodes, almost 3,500. We have episode number 3,495 came out today. Here's what it looks like. So look it up on Apple or Spotify. This is on Apple Podcasts. It's called Work on Your Game. Comes out every single day. So it looks just like me, as you can see. I think you'll pretty much know that's me. Episode number 3,495 came out the 7th, which was, that's actually yesterday. But this is today's episode. I think my staff put this out probably at midnight, so marked as the 7th. This comes out every day. You get a link to this as well. Again, just text the word live. You'll get all the live stuff. We'll send you a text message with a link to everything. So everybody, I appreciate you all. I will see you all tomorrow morning. Thank you for the likes. We got 163,000 likes here today. So thank you, everybody who liked the live. Thanks to the moderators, the regulars who are in here commenting and keeping the chat going. Thanks to the dissenters who came in here and disagreed. Thanks to the people who got the straw man and actually, I didn't use the straw man today. So I'll just throw out a piece of strawberry cheesecake. Y'all can fight over it.
Strawberry cheesecake.
We didn't get that much of that today, but thanks to the people who got all the other logical fallacy awards here today, the triple double awards, the ad hominem award, the appeal to emotion award, the non sequitur awards. And thank you to all of y'all who got the awards, the appeal to ridicule awards as well. I will see everybody tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great Monday. I'll see y'all Tuesday. Work on your game. We're out of here.